Welcome everyone to MISM 4331. This is the course where we learn to be webmasters. The work for week one is pretty basic, even though I do want you to do some research for me this week. Here's the deal. I never really know what kind of students, what makeup of students I'm going to have during the first week, really, of any class. But in this class particularly, it's necessary for me to understand something about all of you before I start laying out all the specific assignments for the term. Now, the assignments for this week are generalized, where that it's going to apply to everyone. But starting next week, there may be specific instructions that are based upon what you know, how long it's been since you did any coding, whether or not you took the MISM 3307 web design class with me, or did you take it somewhere else? And so what I'm going to depend upon this week is, first of all, in the discussion forums, I want you to introduce yourself. And you'll find the link for that down here on the page for week one, personal introduction. Tell us as much about yourself as you feel comfortable in doing, but I really need to know how much you know about web design. What amount of coding have you done? Have you worked with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? And if so, how long ago has that been? You might even tell me what code editor you used. I know if you took this class if you took web design with me several semesters ago, then you probably used the Brackets web editor. Well, Brackets is gone. Adobe took that off the market and it's gone. It's no longer available. So now in my classes, we're all using Visual Studio Code, and that's the code editor that I will recommend for this class is Visual Studio Code. But maybe you used some other code editor. Tell me what you have used, and then I'll tell you whether or not it is useful in a class like this. One thing I don't like for students to use are these full-featured code editors that are called IDE, an Integrated Development Environment. And these would be code editors like Dreamweaver. And the reason is that Dreamweaver, it'll almost write your code for you. It does a lot of other things. And I know that Dreamweaver at times has actually placed code into students' pages that shouldn't be there. So I really like to stay away from Dreamweaver and code editors like that, or IDEs like that, until you can use those when you become a professional and do this on your own and nobody's looking over your shoulder. But for this class, we're going to use Visual Studio Code or something similar if you have experience with that. An example would be Sublime Text. If you have used Sublime Text in the past and that's the one you like to use now, that would be okay. I use Sublime Text here in addition to Visual Studio Code. But tell me what you have done, what you've used. Do all of that here in the personal introduction forum. I'll look through what you say, and then that will pretty much direct the way I go with the rest of this term. So let me know here in this personal introduction forum. You also have a peer support forum, and you'll see the link to it here. If you've been with me in the past, you know I use this every term. This is where each of you support one another by asking questions, trying to solve problems, encourage one another, do whatever you want to do. You can discuss anything about this class in the peer support forum. I don't care. I do read everything that's there, but listen, I'm old enough and far enough along in life. I've already retired once. So, I mean, you're not going to threaten my job by saying, boy, this class really stinks. So, talk about what you want to do in there and just be professional in everything that you do. Now, at the top here in week one, you'll see the discussion forums here. It looks like I need to edit this so I could put that research forum in here. We do have a research forum for this first week. In the textbook, we're going to look at Chapter 3, and it talks about there some big concepts that we need to know. This is where you'll learn more about the difference between the internet and the web and things like that. And then also the chapter 17, which deals with responsive web design. Now, I recommend that you use the physical book for Learning Web Design by Jennifer Robbins. If you want to get the ebook, you may, but if you want to buy the physical book, that's what I recommend. And the reason I do is because it's one of the very best textbooks for this subject that's out there. And in the years to come, if you do any more web coding, then that book is really a very good resource, like a research book that you could have in your library. And so it's really good to have that in the hardback version. But you can use the electronic version if you wish this term. We don't have many chapters to go. We're going to finish that book in this class, but that's just what I recommend with regard to the book. Now, there is no coding assignment for week 1, but what I do want you to do is to look carefully at this discussion assignment. And this is what you're going to do and post down here in the assignment that says Web Hosting Forum Week 1. This class is about becoming a webmaster, and so you need to understand what a domain is. How do you get a domain? And who can host your website? Because there's just like very few people that have the capabilities of hosting a website in their own home. Even I have that problem here because I know how to do it. I could set up a server, and I have servers running here in this room, but I can't get AT&T to allow, just random internet traffic to come into my home and into a web server here. They haven't agreed to that yet. So I have to use a web hosting service. One of the web hosting services I use is one that's called iPage. And you can see their site here, ipage.com. And this is a really good, they're very reliable. They've been very good to me over the years. They have a special for $1.99 a month. And it says regularly $7.99 after that. But you can buy a longer term if you want to. But whenever you buy a hosted service with them, then they give you a free domain for a year. So what you could do is set up an account here in iPage and then just make sure that you cancel it after a year. Now, that means that you'd have to spend some money, and I cannot require that you spend any money in this class. And that's okay. If you don't want to go to the trouble to set up your own website and get a hosting service like iPage. And by the way, there's several other really good hosting services like InMotion.com. That's really a good service too. But you can go to a lot of places and find where that they will give you a free website, a free web domain, and then a very low first-year cost. And you feel free to browse around and take a look at the different options. What I do want you to do, though, is I want you to stay away from sites like Wix. Stay away from Wix. Stay away from any of the websites where that they maintain control over all of the pages that are in your website. I want you to have 100% control of all of the pages in your website, and you will be able to do that with either iPage or InMotion or many of the others. Just as a Christian and as a person who likes to say that I live by what I believe, I encourage you to stay away from GoDaddy and websites like that because I don't know if you remember, but years ago, GoDaddy, they built their entire reputation on exploiting women. And remember Super Bowl ads where real pretty girls that were hardly dressed were trying to sell websites. And that's the kind of people that are at GoDaddy. And I just don't encourage people to use them. I did it one time, and I did not have a good experience with them. And it took me forever to get my account cleared up with them. So anyway, try iPage. They are really good. So I'm going to ask you to research what it takes to get a domain name. What is a domain name? How do you get one? How do you get your website hosted? So look for web hosting services. And then I want you to, in the research forum for this week that's called Web Hosting Forum, I just want you to discuss your experience. What did you find out? What does it cost? Or what would they require of you in order to do this? Now, if you decide, I want you to do this research, but after you do your research, if you decide that you don't want to be at the expense of getting a website of your own, and I cannot require that you do that in this class. So what I do is that I have a website where I just practice things and do all kinds of crazy things. It's sort of like a sacrificial lamb website where I just put lots of different things and practice a lot of the things that I experiment with. But I can create a subdomain in that domain that I have, which means that I can give you a website there for free. It won't cost you anything. You won't have a domain name. You'll just have a subdomain within my website, but it won't cost you anything. And you will have full control over all of the files that you upload to that site. And I'm very happy to do that for you. No expectations of anything whatsoever. If you don't want to be out the expense, just tell me, and I'll be very happy to set that up for you. If you want to go off and dive off into the deep end of the pool this term, then see about setting up a hosted site for yourself. And it can be about anything that you want it to be, but we're going to be putting up those documents that we created in web design, which deal with the founding documents of our country. And we'll be talking about that and about how to use FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol. We'll be looking at that next week. So that's what you have to do for this week. Be sure that whenever you read the chapters, Chapter 3 and Chapter 17, be sure that you go down and take the weekly quiz, and you'll see the link to it at the bottom. There's 17 questions. You need to take that repeatedly so that you'll see all 17 questions. And we have a weekly quiz every week. So that'll kick us off for this term. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you have a lot of fun in this class. Hope you learn a lot. And I hope that we all have just a great sharing and learning experience together in webmastering.